Welcome to this session entitled Evaluation of the Equivalency in HyFlex Group Discussions and AI-Based Qualitative Learning Analytics Framework. So we are two presenters today. My name is John O'Jerry. I'm the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at the Île-de-France Digital University, which is a higher education institution consortium based in Paris area in France. My research focus is on learning spaces and learning environments for a decade now. I've been especially running an international comparative study of learning spaces, and I am joint researcher at Sophia University in Tokyo, Japan, and very happy to be affiliated to Professor Yasui Satamura Laboratory. So Professor Satamura is a specialist of learning analytics in collaboration connection between learning analytics and learning the questions of learning spaces and learning environments. So that brings us to the research we would like to present you today. So for this research, let's start with the hypothetical research questions that we had. There is no need, I guess, for us to remind you the four core principles of HyFlex, but here they are: choice, equivalency, reusability, and accessibility. We focused on equivalency in our research. Practically speaking, we were relying on two hypotheses, which were first that it would be possible to evaluate the equivalency
John, I think we lost your audio. If you could unmute, please.
Yeah, Reza, sorry.
I think we lost your audio. Could you please continue playing just to make sure we can hear it?
Different countries.
Yeah.
Okay. I will go back a little bit. There is no need, I guess, for us to remind you the four core principles of HyFlex, but here they are: choice, equivalency, reusability, and accessibility. We focused on equivalency in our research. Practically speaking, we were relying on two hypotheses, which were first that it would be possible to evaluate the equivalency in HyFlex group discussions by automatically assigning speaking roles and aggregating their distribution. The second hypothesis that we had, which reflects the international range of our experiments that I will discuss in a couple of minutes, was that these analytics may reveal differences in HyFlex group discussions between the different countries. So let's now move to the framework of the experiments that we would like to discuss today. So these experiments have been conducted in late 2024, November and December 2024. And the first parameter that we had was the country. So I was mentioning just before that we had an international range. So indeed, these experiments involved United States in North America, Belgium in Europe, and of course, Japan in Asia. So the idea was to have a significant set of locations, but also of cultures. This is the opportunity for us not only to thank Yuki Itohara, who used to be an undergraduate student at Professor Tamura Laboratory at that time and who was in charge of conducting these experiments, but also our partners abroad. So once again, we were in charge of the Japanese part and of the overall coordination with Professor Tamura. And we were very happy to have with us Mia De Wilde, who is director of the ICTS at Thomas More University in Belgium, in Antwerp area. And for the US part, Brian Beatty. No need to present him at San Francisco State University. So thank you again. Thank you, Brian and Mia, again for your contribution to all of this. So first parameter, the participants' country. Second parameter, it was about the AV setup to have the web cameras on or off. And the third parameter was the discussion format. We tested three of them: brainstorming, consensus building, and debate. So all these parameters combined brought us basically for each country 6 experimental conditions, in the sense that we had camera on and off for all of the 3 discussion formats that we wanted to test. So 6 experimental conditions for each country. Practically speaking, the experiments were run by 10 minutes for each discussion, so 6 times 10 minutes, and they were involving 4 participants, 2 of them in a face-to-face situation, the 2 other ones in a real or simulated remote situation. So real meaning that they were connecting from somewhere else than the campus, simulated when we asked them to sit in another room, separated from the ones with the face-to-face students. The data collection was first this one. So we used the audio recording feature of the video conferencing system, which was Zoom. We conducted first a quantitative analysis, meaning that we wanted to evaluate the utterance and the number of turn takes. And we could have this first quantitative approach for the evaluation of equivalency through some graphs. I'm mentioning this because this first part of the experiments were the ones we have been presenting last year at the HyFlex Collaborative Conference 2025. So for that, we use such kind of graphs. Here you have the participants face-to-face, remote, and then the utterance here. So we had such kind of graphs for each of the 6 experimental conditions, and these 6 graphs with the AV setups here and the discussion format there, those 6 graphs for each of the 3 countries in which we have been running those experiments. So this was what we have been presenting last year during the conference. Have a look. It's very easy to find the video recording, and there was also a paper published about a more extensive discussion on these results. But this quantitative approach was the first one that we have been discussing. So I'm saying that because today we are more focusing on the qualitative approach, qualitative analysis. So once again, quantitative last year, please see the contents of HCC'25. This year, HCC'26, we are discussing about qualitative analysis. So we wanted there not only to know how much the people have been talking, but what they were saying, basically. And we have been producing some graphs for the qualitative approach, once again, intending to evaluate the equivalency through this content analysis. So this is what we are discussing this year at HCC'26. But these 2 approaches, of course, are very connected to each other. Practically speaking, once again, we have been using the audio recording from the Zoom discussions. Then we have been conducting a speech-to-text transcription. We use for that different systems. In Japan, we used HyLabel, which is a Japanese system. For Belgium and US, so for Dutch language and English, we used OpenAI Whisper and then a Google Translate because it was producing better results. And the third and last steps was basically to conduct the AI-based evaluation of the roles. So clearly analyzing what the students were saying and what kind of role they had during the discussions. We run this AI-based role evaluation through 3 iterations, and we could reach an accuracy of 76%, which is a ChatGPT self-assessment after those 3 iterations. So once again, the 3 steps to collect the data. And from this data collection, we could have such kind of material. So here you have 5 typical roles in the discussion that we identified: claim, question, reasoning, affirmative assertion, and negative assertion. And we could see for each participant which role they had in terms of person during the discussion. So let's now move to some results and first conclusions. So first, to say that what we will show you from now on are a part of the results. To have a more extensive view, you can refer to the paper that will be published after the HCC'26 conference. But to give you some first results, the first one that we would like to show you is about the impact on the camera on-off on the nature of the assertion. So this very first graph shows the percentage of affirmative assertions for each country in the format discussion of brainstorming, okay? And what we can see is that in this brainstorming format of discussion, we can see that in Japan, for instance, this percentage of affirmative assertion was higher when the camera was off than when it was on, the blue bar against the red bar. In Belgium and the US, it was the opposite. We could have a higher percentage of affirmative assertion when the camera was on. So this is the first result we could get. The second graph shows the kind of same results, but this time it's not in brainstorming, it's in another discussion format, the consensus building. And in this format, all of the three countries showed a percentage of affirmative assertion higher with the camera off than on. The most significant difference that we could see was in Japan, in which the camera, the number was much higher with camera off than on. An explanation of these results might be in the necessity in a consensus building to acknowledge different opinions to reach an agreement. And in such a situation with the camera off, the participants being not visible, they may show their approval by vocally say their affirmative standpoint rather than nodding. Once again, we couldn't see them with the camera off, so that might be an explanation. The brainstorming, coming back to that first format we were discussing just before, on each side, the brainstorming doesn't necessarily require the other approval, and it allows to freely express the participants' opinion. So the higher percentage of affirmative assertion in Japan with the camera off in the brainstorming and consensus building for Japan might be culturally explained by the will to feel the ambience before speaking. This might be a cultural insight to explain those results. The second set of results we would like to show you is the impact of the discussion format on the assertion type, and this is for reasoning. So these results have been obtained with the camera on, and we can see that in Belgium and US, the debate showed the highest proportion of reasoning. In Japan, this proportion was almost identical between debate and consensus building and higher than in the brainstorming. So we can see some specificities here again. Second, in the same approach, the results for the negative assertion, so impact of the format on the negative assertion. In all of the three countries, the debate showed the highest percentage of negative assertion. And among those three countries, Japan tended to show a percentage of negative assertion that was lower than the one in Belgium and US. Comparatively to debate, brainstorming doesn't involve persuasion, which might explain the subjective assertions. In a debate, the idea is rather to convince the other, which can explain the reasoning, basically. Finally, debate showed a higher percentage of negative assertion as it is necessary to refute the other's opinion. Coming back to specificity that we could see from the Japanese group, Japan showed the lowest percentage of negative assertion in debate. And here again, there might be a cultural explanation in the sense that the expression of opinion is maybe more restrained, culturally speaking, in Japan than in Belgium and the US. The third set of results we wanted to present you today is the variance of the roles for each country. So for each discussion format, we calculated the variance for the 4 participants, and we compared it between all the 5 roles that we had identified. You have here a table for each country, Japan, Belgium, and US. And in these tables, you have green cells that show the highest variance that we observe for each experimental condition. In all the countries, no tendency was observed for the roles with the larger variance to be biased towards claims. These results showed that the bias varied depending on the type of discussion, basically. Furthermore, the fact that the variance for the affirmative role was smaller than for the negative role suggests that more people are uncomfortable with negative roles than affirmative ones, and that there might be a larger difference between those who can easily act negatively and those who cannot. Also about the variance, and this is the last table we would like to show you. This table shows results obtained with camera on. So once again, about the variance of the roles. And here the variance of the proportions of the 5 types of roles was calculated for each participant in one discussion. And these were arranged for the 4 participants, for the 4 individuals. So this table shows the results of examining whether there was a statistically different, significant difference in the variances of the four individuals. So no significant difference nor trend could be observed for the discussions. However, results show that for a same participant or a same group, the discussion format and the camera's activation was impacting that variance, meaning that the participants and groups behave differently. In other words, individuals and groups behave differently depending on the discussion format and whether the camera is on or off. Comparison of the value highlighted that the most important difference in the behavior were observed in the Japanese group, and at the opposite, no significant difference was observed for the Belgian one. These results clearly showed us that the behavior during the discussions varies from one discussion to another, and that some people basically are more likely than others to change their participation style. We have to say that this study does not identify the factors that prompt these individuals to change their participation styles, and this is something that might be explored in further research. So, as a conclusion, coming back to our hypothesis, we could acknowledge that the automatic estimation of speaking roles using generative AI allowed indeed an objective evaluation of these roles in the group discussion. So thereby, it can represent a tool for assessing the evaluation of the equivalency in HyFlex discussions. This is one of the key conclusions that we had from these experiments. There are future challenges and perspectives remaining. First, the influence of the sequence caused by the specific statements and also by the relationships existing or not between the participants. Furthermore, and I will conclude with this, we can, of course, expect that the accuracy of the natural language processing will improve, as well as the accuracy of the conversion to speech data to text data. So overall, the accuracy of the role estimation by generative AI, of course, may significantly improve in the future. And this is, of course, a significant perspective. So we remain available to answer your questions, synchronously or asynchronously. And once again, please refer to the upcoming paper to have a more extensive view of those results. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, John, for a great presentation. We have, I think, 2 minutes or so for a question from the audience. And
I have just,
Sure.
before the questions may come, I uploaded the proper file of the recording without the moment I had the sound off. So please put this one on the YouTube when you finish the conference. It's going to be a better one.
Absolutely. I'll let Jerry know so he puts that online.
I will put in the chat room my email because we have a very short time now. But if you have any further question about this presentation, please feel free to.
Thanks so much.
Thank
you for joining the conference. I know it's evening time in France, so thank you.
Actually, I'm in Japan, so it's almost 1 a.m. here.
Oh my God.
No, it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. Don't worry. Always a pleasure to join. Always.
Thank you. It's wonderful to hear your study. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
With your permission, I'm gonna move to the next study by Dr. Vincent Han. So Dr. Han, if you would like me to do you like to show your video, or are you going to present live? Either one works for us.
I was going to do the video. It's just much more time efficient.
Okay, sure. You could share your screen if you'd like.
Okay. Okay, just a moment. I'm just going to use the YouTube link that Jerry posted. Okay, you can see this?
Yes. Thank you.
Actually, I need to be able to share my audio. Just a moment. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be part of today's conference And my session is entitled Why Learning Fails and How AI Removes the Barriers We've Normalized. I just want to introduce myself very briefly. My name is Vince Hahn. I'm a technologist and entrepreneur. I've been building enterprise chatbots since 2013, so this is my 14th year doing it. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Mobile Coach, a chatbot company. And just to get to know me a little bit, I used to be a vintage clothing dealer, so something very random in the past. I was actually a trombone major when I was in university many, many years ago before all this white hair. And I'm also an ultra runner. And I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So there's a QR code where you can just find me as Vince Hahn. So let's jump into today's presentation. Just curious, maybe ask yourself, what are you learning nowadays on your own volition? What are some things that you are tackling, some areas of interest? For me, I'm learning about, I'm actually trying to improve. Korean is my second language, English is my native language, so I'm working on Korean. But I'm curious, just think about a little bit about what are you learning nowadays? Maybe it's a new skill, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe you're trying to fix something around your house. And the point with that reflection is that self-motivated learning is fueled by some intrinsic motivation. There's some reason, there's a why that is driving your interest in learning whatever you're learning. And there's a difference between self-motivated learning with obligated learning. And obligated learning is something that either at school you have to take a class maybe you wouldn't have decided to take, or in the workplace, what we're talking about today, the things that you're asked to learn, or even the things that you want to learn for career development, can fall under this bucket of obligated learning. And there's some real differences there. And I like to call these differences self-guided learning and guided learning. Let's talk a little bit about these differences. So under self-guided learning, this is where you get to choose what to learn and when to learn it. It's typically driven by personal interest. It's normally a flexible, non-linear path. I mean, maybe you decide to take a class that has a linear path in it, but normally it's the whole breadth of how you're trying to learn what you're trying to learn under self-guided learning is flexible. And there's a minimal structure or there's minimal external accountability. Whereas at work, when you're learning stuff at work, typically the organization is defining what to learn and when to learn. And this could range from required security, compliance training, or it could range to leadership development that the organization's investing in you. And there's a leadership framework that they want you to learn and internalize. Typically, it's driven by your role, what your job goals are, what those requirements are. And a lot of times, guided learning is structured and it's sequenced learning paths. So it might be an e-learning course you have to sign up for and go through, or maybe you actually go to an in-person facilitated workshop. And there's normally some built-in accountability and expectations, because someone's paying for this guided learning and they want some sort of measure. Is this working? Is there a return on investment? So normally there's some sort of accountability. So that could look like, logging into a learning management system, taking a course and passing the course. And so there's some report that you've completed some learning. So within guided learning, now maybe coloring guided learning as a negative thing. It's very important, and organizations that can really develop their workforce efficiently and correctly and effectively are going to perform better. I mean, let's face it, if you identify a set of skills, attributes that you can improve with your workforce, and those skills and attributes are positively correlated with company success, but that's a really important strategic advantage. Now, obligated learning is tough to pull off. I mean, without a raise of hands, just think about, have you ever been in an e-learning course and haven't been 100% focused on the course? It is just tough to pull off. And so there's some really common learning barriers that we've just learned to normalize. And so, you go to some workshop at work and it's just boom, 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 boom. It's too much content in a limited amount of time, more content than is reasonably expected to retain. there's a lot of learning infrastructure in companies just naturally prioritize clicks and completion over outcomes, because I can go to the learning management system and run a report to say, hey, 90% of the people completed this required training, and that could be a checkbox. But really, how much did they learn the content in the training, the real outcome? That can be more elusive. A lot of times we just rely on one and done training with no real reinforcement. Get them in a room, teach them what we're supposed to teach them, and then hope for the best. There's often little support for real world application. So I could go to a workshop and say, boy, this is really great stuff. This will really help me be better in my job. And when I get back to my desk, how much am I making that sustainability, that training reinforcement, that transfer of knowledge happen in the workplace? That can be suspect. Oftentimes the training content is generic and it ignores role specific needs. Do I teach this principle different to the sales team versus the accounting team versus our customer service reps? And oftentimes there's no tracking on whether the training really impacted behavior. So these are just very common barriers that we just maybe sometimes have accepted as there's nothing we can do about it. Well, enter AI and the bot. And what an AI bot can do, we're going to walk through how the AI bot can solve a lot of these normalized barriers. The first thing, before we go into that, I want to just point out that keep in mind that there are different bot modalities. Now, when I say bot, oftentimes people will think about Claude or Gemini or Copilot, some sort of web-based AI chatbot that's passive. It's going to be waiting for you to ask it a question or engage with it. And I just want to remind you that there are different modalities. So on the screen here, there's screenshots of like a web-based chatbot, something that you'd be accustomed to, but also a bot on Teams and an SMS bot. So bots on Teams and SMS can be different in that they can proactively message you first. And that can be a game changer in terms of implementing AI to really help people develop in the workplace. So I just wanted to remind you of that capability as we look at how AI can solve these learning barriers. So we talked about the barriers of too much content, too little time, emphasizing outcome over clicks, or that should actually be emphasizing clicks over outcome. AI bots give you time and access to the learner wherever they already are. So I showed you a screenshot of a bot on Teams and a bot on SMS. Well, bots can be on WhatsApp, they can be on Slack, they can be on Google, they can be embedded on your web app. So they can be everywhere where messaging can happen. So that means that this barrier of, oh gosh, I only get 60 minutes, or I only get this cohort of learners or of my colleagues in this workshop for 60 minutes. That's all I got. So I got to cram all this content in there. Well, now you can have access to your target audience 24 hours a day, and it doesn't have to be crammed into 60 minutes or into a 10-minute e-learning course. You can have the bot proactively drip micro-learning, drip content over time. And in many cases, dripping learning over time is actually easier on the brain, more effective for learning overall. What about reinforcement? This idea that, gosh, after they leave the structured learning environment, let's just hope for the best that they're going to apply what they learned. Well, so an AI bot can allow you to proactively follow up with them. And so this could look like, hey, we're going to program the bot to once a week or twice a week proactively message a question or a quiz question or a survey question or just a check-in or maybe a reminder to reinforce the training path that someone's on. Remember that a bot can be trained with high context. So if the bot knows I've enrolled into course XYZ and it knows the content of that course XYZ, then it can follow up in a highly personalized way. Well, what about the barrier of I need support right now, the moment of need? As we all know, AI bots are computers, so they're available 24 hours a day in any language, and this can really be helpful for organizations that have a global workforce, all time zones, different languages, and bots can be trained to know how to answer a question based on context of I'm in this particular time zone, I'm in this particular role. So what a great resource to have a bot be available in the moment of need. That dovetails into personalization capability. So an AI bot can cater to a person's context. Remember, one of the barriers was when I'm developing. Think about your if you've got a learning and development team in your organization, they're oftentimes having to, okay, well, I'm designing this e-learning course for the whole company. So it often becomes sort of general content for that topic. Well, now with a bot, you can personalize that content. So you could say, hey, here's the general principle and the content that we want to teach, but let's personalize it for the sales team, as I mentioned before, or the accounting team, or the customer service rep. So it can be highly personalized, and that will be positively correlated to more effective learning in the workplace. This is all coming back to really the purpose of why an organization wants guided learning to start with. And what I mentioned earlier before, is that if you can really think about an organization that can effectively teach and train their workforce on the pivotal skills and attributes and knowledge, that can really be a game changer for companies to be successful. I also think that there's this barrier for next level assessment capability. AI bots can assess progress and provide reporting data. It's like this could be like one of the killer app features and functionality of a bot, actually, where you can have the bot be, oh boy, for the lack of a better term, like a benevolent informant for you. So imagine having the bot asking these questions over time about how the person's doing, what they think about the product, what they thought about that sales meeting, and of course to help them frame their thinking and to help coach them around personal development. But all that information that you're gathering, boy, can be just hugely valuable in terms of organizational intelligence. So the ability to assess progress and provide reporting data. Okay, so I need to wrap up here for some Q&A. So I mentioned how like Copilot, Claude, Gemini, these are self-guided AI bots where it's really relying on the user or waiting for the user to engage with it. A guided bot is where the organization has a vested interest in what the bot's doing. One of the disadvantages of self-guided bots, and they're amazing, I'm sure all of us are using them on a daily basis, but I don't know what I don't know, right? So the quality of what I'm going to get out of a self-guided bot is really based on my current state. Now, under a guided bot, with the organization will have strategy, will have many components that the user is not aware of or is not up to speed yet. And so a guided bot can be programmed to fill in those gaps for users. Common use cases for guided bots, talked about training reinforcement, performance support. Coaching is an incredible use case for bots, and a really effective AI bot that's a coach can actually do a lot of the training. We talked about micro-learning a little bit, and customers, a guided bot that's really, it's, in lockstep alignment with company strategy, engaging with your customers could really be a game changer. Please take a screenshot of this slide, which is key questions when you're designing a guided bot as an organization. What kind of things do you need to answer to come up with your scope and your requirements? This is a great list. I've helped many organizations scope their bots to successful outcomes based on these questions here. A couple final points. AI is not set and forget. So once you've built your guided bot, you can't just let it wilt, because in an organization, content's going to be dynamic. So your company might acquire a different company. Now, all of a sudden, the bot needs to be reset and informed by all those changes, policy changes. And so as those policies change, the chatbot needs to be aware of it. So put in your project plan how you're going to keep the chatbot up to date with the most up-to-date information, which also means that the bot needs a boss. So ownership becomes operational. I love this little image here where you're tweaking the knobs and the dials of how the bot's working based on what it's learning and what you're learning from it. So just like every human needs a manager and needs to be held accountable, any AI bot that you deploy in your organization also needs that type of management. So make sure you have that as part of your project plan. So with that, that ends the recording part of it, and I'm around to answer questions and would love to engage with you. So thanks for participating, and we'll see what questions you have.
Thanks so much, Vince. Great presentation. Appreciate it. So can we have a couple of minutes? There's a lunch and learn at 12, but if you want to stay a bit longer, we can have some questions from the audience.
Vincent, are you planning to publish the paper after the conference as well?
No, I'm not.
So we'll rely on the recording.
Yes, yeah.
It's a great
cool.
great presentation, great study.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank you
very good.
much.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? So, what kind of guardrails have you been asked to put for these kind of bots by companies that you work with? Like, can you give some examples? Like,
Yeah, so the most common is regulatory guardrails. So if a company is a financial company or healthcare or pharmaceutical company, they're going to have very strict guardrails. But I think then other than that, it's typically role-based guardrails. So where if, for example, if a bot is structured to to provide training reinforcement for a particular course or a particular curriculum, that it doesn't allow any conversations outside of that topic. Those are probably the most common.
thank you so much. John, if you don't have any questions, maybe we can give you guys a break until the lunch and learn, and then we'll see you later. Thanks so much for the session. I apologize for the issues in the beginning with the link.
No problem.
Thank you. We'll
you.
see you.
Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right. Thank you both. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.